bij zomeruur. Het is zover, hè, de zomer breekt aan. Of tenminste, het zomeruur is begonnen. En we sluiten, of ik sluit het laatste seizoen winteruur af met dus een zomeruuraflevering. En ik zit tegen jou te praten op een toon alsof je mij begrijpt, maar dat is natuurlijk niet het geval. I was saying that I was talking to you.
Winter, zomer, ja.
Oké, ja. Dus naast mij zit Paolo Giordano, schrijver van onder andere De eenzaamheid van de priemgetallen, Solitude of the Primes. En wat u waarschijnlijk gelezen hebt, zijn laatste boek heet in het Italiaans Divorare il cielo. Ja. En dus in het Nederlands klinkt dat de hemel verslinden. Heel goed. Voilà, en daarmee ben je ingeleid. I just introduced you. Now the question is if you brought a text, if you will read it for us. De tekst die Paolo heeft gekozen, kunnen jullie ook allemaal terugvinden in het boekje dat jullie bij hebben? Ja.
Morning. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. It's always very difficult when somebody asks you to pick up a text or a piece of writing that is meaningful to you because you have
That many
thousands
texts.
of pages.
Yeah.
But I chose it out of instinct. So this is it. It's from Elias Canetti, whom many of you probably know. My earliest memory is dipped in red. I come out of a door on the arm of a maid. The floor in front of me is red, and to the left, a staircase goes down, equally red. Across from us, at the same height, a door opens, and a smiling man steps forth, walking towards me in a friendly way. He steps right up close to me, halts, and says, "Show me your tongue." I stick out my tongue. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a jackknife, opens it, and brings the blade all the way to my tongue. He comes closer and closer. The blade will touch me any second. In the last moment, he pulls back the knife, saying, "Not today, tomorrow." He snaps the knife shut again and puts it back in his pocket.
Yes.
The book is called The Tongue Set Free. So
The Tongue Set Free. And the book is autobiography.
yeah, it's basically the memoirs of Elias Canetti. It's a beautiful book. If you haven't read it, it's a book about Europe in the beginning of the 20th century because Canetti lived in many cities. He lived in Vienna, in Germany, in Switzerland, and there's this amazing relationship between him and his mother, with whom he was a little obsessed, like we all are, or the boys.
Are we obsessed with the mother of Elias Canetti?
No, with your own. Don't hide yourself behind a finger.
And this is the beginning of the book, I think.
Yeah, and it's a small chapter called "My Earliest Memory," and I first read it. Sometimes this happens with books, no, with novels, that I really believe that we build some strange connections with books, no. So we kind of call books that we are looking for sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, when I first read The Tongue Set Free, I was thinking exactly of what happens in this scene. So,
Yes, what happens?
The fact that each of us has an earliest memory, I think. So I have my earliest memory, and it's not dipped in red as the one of Canetti, but mine is dipped in blue. And I was thinking about it because I realized that every time I start a new book, a new story, I always start from that memory. start retelling that same moment, and then I have to take it out from the book somehow because I
Do you
already
mean
told it.
you retell it like Elias Canetti tells his
Somehow,
story?
somehow, and what fascinates me of these earliest memories that I think all of us have is that they are in between memories and dreams. Usually, they go back so they go so far back in our time that we tend to mix them
Yeah.
between memory and dream. And if you read the whole chapter of Canetti, you realize this thing. It, you're not sure if he's telling a dream or a real memory, and then like 30 years later, he asks his mother about this memory. He asks her, he asks his mother, where were we?
Yeah.
There was this red place. I remember it, and he finds out that it was true. They were in this hotel, and this this man who threatens to cut Canetti's tongue.
Yeah.
It, it it appears that he was the hidden boyfriend of this nanny who was
Ah.
taking care of Canetti at that time, and the nanny who was only like 15. When Canetti's parents found out about that relationship, they sent her away.
Yeah.
So what this made
But
me
the
think of-
knife was probably was the knife there in reality? Did
Who
his mother
knows?
tell? Okay.
Nobody knows. That's the fascinating part, I think. We it happens. I mean, we know it from from the neurosciences that even as grown-ups, even with very recent memories, we tend to make up things. We tend to
Yep.
invent upon our memories and build them up somehow to some extent. But with this very early memory, the how do you say that the border becomes very, very hazy. You don't
Yep.
really know where the dream ends and the memory begins, and the other way around. So who knows if the knife was there? But still, I have a feeling that I'm pretty sure that each of you has now thought of his own earliest memory, and it's a game that I play with my students when I teach writing. And it's always, and I use that because it's very fertile for the writing. I think, especially as writers, we need to reconnect with those early memories because they tell something very fundamental about our personality and why we write and why we want to tell stories. And what I realize is that it becomes very contagious. So when one starts to tell his own early memory, then the other ones start to pick up new things that they were
We could
almost
play
forgetting.
this game now.
In summer.
Sorry. Yeah. And what do you think this tells about Canetti? The tongue and the knife and
Well, it's all writers
it's
want.
threatening.
Yeah, it's threatening, but then the book is the tongue set free. So the boy in the end doesn't cut Canetti's tongue.
Mhm.
And the tongue, so the language, in Italian, in English, you have a word for tongue and a word for language. But for instance, in Italian, you use the same word.
Yeah.
And so, like all writers, also Canetti wanted to see a sort of destiny in himself. We like to see our life as a sort of destiny that realized itself eventually. So he was meant to be a writer, a storyteller, someone who would use his tongue, his speaking attitude to save the world and save himself.
And at the same time, there was danger.
There was red, so this color, the red, is probably defining for him.
Yeah.
So what would be your color
My color, red
in the
too.
memory?
Yeah.
Red too.
Red and gray, yeah. But we're, of course, or I'm very curious about your first memory in blue.
It's It's blue because and it's related to this small lamp
Yeah.
that I used to have in my room. I was very young, and I remember my father, who is a very skeptical and scientifically
Straight.
strict
Yeah.
person, wanted me to stop having this light on at night because probably that reminded him of the Middle Age and church and all that obscure way of thinking. But I couldn't sleep with any light on, so I think we kind of negotiated. But I was very very young, so like I must have been 3 or 4. Um, and so what it did eventually, and that's probably my very earliest memory, he painted this light bulb in blue so that the light would be less bright.
Yes.
And I remember these first nights, the lamp was in the opposite corner of the room, and I used to stare at this blue light, and I had this very weird feeling, perception that the room, that the space between me and the lamp was becoming bigger and bigger. So that the lamp was receding or I was receding, and that the space of the room was kind of being distorted by something. And it was a very, very frightening feeling
Mm-hmm.
that I couldn't, so frightening that I never talked about it with anyone, even with my parents in the daytime. But I used to think about it a lot. And that's another point, that those early memories are mostly related with fear of something happening.
Yeah.
Which is meaningful to some extent that I don't know.
And you say the early memories are related to fear. That's
They're
for everybody.
mostly, yeah,
for-
most of the time.
Yeah.
It's one of, probably because it's one of the first shocking things that we experience,
Yeah.
and fear defines us as young kids more than other emotions.
You said earlier that this first memory is a fertile ground
Yeah.
for a writer
For writer,
to start from. How does this work for you with the memory you just shared with us?
I think it's easier to see in other writers. I think.
Yeah. Somebody else must answer this question for you.
Yeah, because I think there is a sort of mystery in those memories that hasn't to be solved completely. Because I have a feeling that if you solve it completely, then you're done. You are finished.
It's not meant to
There's
be
nothing more
solved.
to. But I think this idea of the space time being distorted, and those and especially these frightening ideas of objects and things running away from me, is a very defining feeling for me, and somehow it's there in the stories I write. It's something, it's like it could happen to me. I know it could happen to me at any time, that things just kind of start to slip away from me and I cannot grab them anymore.
Okay.
You're becoming frightened, you're leaning
No. I was
back and back.
I was just the my first memories. There's 2 or 3, and I don't know which one is the first. There's all animals in them. There's a lion, so that was not real. I know it was
Who
in
knows?
in a dream in the house we used to live in. Then in my dream, out of the blue, a lion jumped over the wall with the neighbor's garden,
Is
and he
there
was there.
is there a psychoanalyst in here? Is the lion?
What does it mean? The
I
lion?
don't know. I'm no analyst.
So I was thinking about that, and about how good it's an interesting way to get to know people.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. Um, Will you read it again for us?
Yeah, sure. My earliest memory is dipped in red. I come out of a door on the arm of a maid. The floor in front of me is red, and to the left a staircase goes down, equally red. Across from us, at the same height, a door opens, and a smiling man steps forth, walking towards me in a friendly way. He steps right up close to me, halts, and says, "Show me your tongue." I stick out my tongue. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a jackknife, opens it, and brings the blade all the way to my tongue. He comes closer and closer. The blade will touch me any second. In the last moment, he pulls back the knife, saying, "Not today, tomorrow." He snaps the knife shut again and puts it back in his pocket.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Applaus.
I think I'll see you at 1:30 somewhere for an event. Somewhere.
En er komt ook nog een 4 volgende winteruurgesprekken hier. En het volgende is denk ik over een half uur of een kwartier. Een kwartier, oké, ja. Tot ziens dan.